Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So this is now my second video in my Malazan book series of videos, and this time I'm delving into the second book of this series, Deadhouse Gates. Now, as with Gone to the Moon and that video, I'll be doing a sort of little discussion about the background of this book first, my thoughts, kind of like a mini review of the book, kind of tied in with that, and then I'll be sharing my favourite moments from the book as well. And as with Gone to the Moon, I think I've picked out 7 or 8 favourite moments from the book, which I've kind of got bookmarked here as well. So hopefully it won't take me too long to find them this time, as in the first video I was flicking through pages for a little bit too long, I thought. So anyway, so yeah, this Deadhouse Gates, my second reading of it. I have read the first 4 books once before, and this is a brilliant book for me. This is where I think what Erikson does better with this than with Gone to the Moon is this feels more focused, a bit more focused in on the characters involved. It feels a bit more like you've got a core set of characters that he is writing and that he is, playing around with in this story much more. And I think that means that you as a reader have got a bit more time to sort of digest more of the story, more of what's going on. And for me, one of the striking things about Deadhouse Gates, perhaps almost more than anything else, almost from the very beginning as well, is just how dark and how brutal this book is. I mean, it is obviously, for this world, it's a time of war, a time of chaos, and for some of the core characters in this book, it's a time of punishment where they're being really quite severely punished. And I'll go into the sort of 3 main threads shortly, but yeah, just how dark and violent this book was. Kind of at times, it gets pretty shocking, I think, with a lot of the stuff that happens with Felicin early on in the story. But I think Erikson handles his characters very well and gives them quite a bit of resilience too. And I think including Felicin is a pretty, considering what she goes through, I think she has a lot of resilience to her as well. So I think, so I was just talking about the background a bit there. If you're looking for, if you're new to Malazan, you're wondering, well, how does this follow on from the first book? This is where a lot of people are probably, a bit put off maybe by Deadhouse Gates, but for me, it's not too much of an issue because I think this book has it could almost be a standalone book, right? I think Deadhouse Gates is so strong just as a standalone book that it doesn't matter too much that it doesn't follow, straight after Gone to the Moon, and that only has kind of the main connecting point for me are the sort of Callum, Crocus, Apsalar, and Fiddler part of this story, where they're kind of the fugitives from the first book and the massive kind of falling out, of the Malazans from the first book after what happens in Darujistan. There is that bit of continuation with Deadhouse Gates, but more or less the rest of it is almost kind of a bit more standalone. And as I say, that may put some people off, but for me, I didn't mind at all because this is in its own right and almost, as I say, as its own book with its really distinctive, brilliantly painted characters. I think it still makes it one of my favourites from the 4, well, perhaps my favourite from the 4 books that I've read so far as well. So I think you can identify 3 main threads in Deadhouse Gates. You've got the chain of dogs with Coltane and his army attempting to lead thousands of Malazan refugees to safety, accompanied by this interesting historian character Duka, or Doika, don't know how on earth you say his name, who's a bit of a central character in this story as well. He becomes more and more central for me as the story goes on. You have, as the aforementioned, Felicin, the trio of Felicin, Baldin, and Heberic, and the adversity they're facing, having been cast out to the Otataral mines by the nobility. You have Fiddler, Callum, Crocus, and Apsalar, as well as the 7 cities fugitives, and they're kind of their own objectives change a little bit. So I don't want to go too much into spoilers yet. I'll reserve major spoilers for my favourite moments, and I'll give a warning about spoilers before I say my favourite moments as well, as with the last video. But yes, you get chiefly, I think, one of the key threads in this book is as well Callum's mission, because he wants to he seems to want to kill the Empress. So quite a lot of the book as well is kind of revolving around him too. So those are, for me, those are like the three main threads. You've got Chain of Dogs, Felasin, Baldin, Heberic in the mines, and then our quartet following the events of Gardens of the Moon, Fiddler, Callum, Crocus, and Absalom. So overall, what did I think of Deadhouse Gates? Well, I've kind of already covered, really. I think it's a fantastic book, a great second entry. I think, as I say, it doesn't matter that it's not sort of necessarily a straight, straight after everything that's happened in Gardens of the Moon. I think that actually a lot of the choices that Erikson made feel justified once you get to the end of this. For me, it's a 9 out of 10 book. For me, I felt Gardens of the Moon, after rereading that one, I would have given that maybe an 8. But this one for me is a 9. I think it's fantastic. It's the war elements, the military tactics side of things, the, I don't mind a really dark book either. And so, you get that obviously with this, and, as graphic as it can be at times. I think Erikson is basically revealing just the brutality of this world and all that goes on, and it's just total chaos, and the political stuff as well is still present in this, as it was, I think, quite a bit as it was with the first entry in the series. So there's kind of that consistency to it as well. Anyway, let's go on to my favourite moments now. So my first favourite moment is Baldin's absolute brutality, his ruthless brutality. And this is, I think, Lady Gayson, and how he essentially, he basically tears her head off in the prologue of this novel. So this is page 37. So this is describing when Baldin is doing this, I think, to get them away from, to get Felasin and Heberic away from this mob. And he takes extreme measures basically to get them away from him, I think. And so this is describing what Baldin does to Lady Gayson, and it's absolutely brutal. So the head came away with a sobbing sound. Baldin's teeth glimmered as he stared at the crowd. "We had a deal," he grated. "Here's what you want, something to remember this day by." He flung Lady Gayson's head into the mob, a whirl of hair and threads of blood. Screams answered its unseen landing. Now, if ever, this is only the prologue, so if ever you wanted, gore and just brutality from the very beginning of this book, you've got it right there. Next up, we have Fiddler and Crocus and their differences, which I just thought was an interesting bit of character work. And it's Crocus kind of snapping at Fiddler, because he and Fiddler, I think, are on slightly different views as to what they want their mission to be here. And Crocus snaps and he goes, "And if Callum doesn't make it, you'll go after Lassine yourself," because of course, Callum's off to try and kill her. "A glorified ditch digger, and long in the tooth at that. You hardly inspire confidence, Fiddler. We're supposed to be taking Absalom home." Fiddler's voice was cold. "Don't push me, lad. A few years pilfering purses on Davrujistan streets don't qualify you to cast judgment on me." And I just like their little disputes in that part of the book. My next favourite moment is a moment which I would call sliding beds. And this is pretty gruesome. Again, if you like your gore, I suppose you probably like this. This is pretty brutal. So this is Duca spotting what's happened to these poor Malazan soldiers. As I think he's arriving just after a slaughter. And this is the description of it, so I'll just read this paragraph. "Along the track, no more than 50 long paces from Duca's position, a hapless squad of Malazan soldiers writhed on what were locally called sliding beds. 4 tall spears, each set upright, the victims set atop the jagged points. At the shoulders and upper thighs, Depending on their weight and their strength of will in staying motionless, the impaling and the slow slide down to the ground could take hours. Page 394 is the next favourite moment, and I like this. This is kind of Lowell defending Coltane's tactics, and he's arguing with the nobility. He's defending Coltane from pressure from the nobility, the privileged ones, with what they think, what he think the order of taking people over the bridge should be. If I remember right, this is, I think it's called, what's the bridge called? Sakala Bridge or something? So here we go. Nethpara, who's one of the nobles, speaks. Please, Fist, reconsider this order of crossing. While my heart breaks for those wounded soldiers, your responsibility is to protect the refugees. More, it will be viewed by many in council as a grievous insult that livestock should cross before unarmed civilians of the empire. And Lowell challenges this. He's defending Coltane's decision for livestock to go across before, I think, before the wounded soldiers, I think. So, and then he says, and if we lose the cattle, Lowell asked the nobleman, I suppose you could spit the orphan children over a fire. So a pretty good comeback that to Nethpara there from Lowell. Page 596 I got next as my next moment, which is Bodin's heroics. And this is quite powerful stuff actually here, because Felison and Bodin to this point haven't exactly got on. I mean, let's be honest. But it's kind of a moment where Felison is a bit repentant as to what's happened, and I think she finally feels a sense of empathy and a feeling of remorse, and it's just a really kind of nice moment. So you were wrong, she whispered, an image of armor within her suddenly cracking, fissures spreading, and beneath it, behind it, something was building. And I like that. It's describing how Felison is kind of feeling that bit of remorse, I think. And Bodin has just been, a hero braving through fire to save both her and Heberic. So we move on to page 616. For my next favourite moment, this is favourite moment. I think this is so I've got two favourite moments left. This is the next one. Callum's suspicion of Sulk Ilan. And I just like Callum's, thinking here, and his judge of character, that he is obviously, he's getting slightly suspicious of this Sulk Ilan character. And he says, Sulk Ilan, or this is actually, I don't think this is him speaking. So Sulk Ilan was likely a mage, and he also had the look of a man capable of handling himself in a fight. He had not so much as flinched when the treasurer's bodyguard had closed on him. And then this is Callum's thoughts, none of which puts me at ease. The assassin sighed, and the man knows bad ale when he tastes it. So that's a bit of Callum's humour coming in as well to the mix. And the last favourite moment, and there's the whole stuff with the final scenes with Coltane as well, but I've actually picked a different scene, which is, I think, kind of quite an amazing scene at the end of this book, with Callum actually walking away from the Empress, Callum leaving the Empress instead of killing her. He is sort of talked out of doing it by the Empress, but I really like this moment that describes Callum leaving. He smiled in the darkness. Your confidence in me is flattering, Empress. He swung the stallion around, strode to the doorway, and turned back one last time. If you meant to ask, will I come for you again? The answer is no. So he's still kind of, obviously, doesn't exactly, he still has no love for the Empress, put it that way, but he's kind of now just accepting he's just going to move on. So that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching this. As always, next up, of course, we'll have the third episode, and we'll have Memories of Ice. That will be probably in the next 4 weeks or so, I suspect. I think probably getting through these books, they're pretty big, once a month, and doing my kind of mini mini reviews of these. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I hope you've all enjoyed the video. And from me, take care, everybody, and bye for now.